All right, when we look at this Texas football team going into 2025, what position group are you most confident in, right? Going into next season, what position group can you hang your hat on? That's what I want to discuss today. I mean, there's probably multiple, but what position group are you absolutely not worried about going into next season? That's what we discuss on today's episode of Locked on Longhorns.
You are Locked on Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Longhorns, the show. Jonathan Davis, your host. Today's episode of Locked on Longhorns is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's on FanDuel. So first segment, the position group on this football team that I am most confident in. Second segment, the women's basketball team is rolling 3 straight top 10 wins, 2 top 5 wins in 7 days. I talk about the LSU game yesterday. And then in the last segment, the Texas baseball team got their season started over the weekend. A nice start for Jim Schlossnagle and company. All of that and more on today's episode of Locked on Longhorns, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. If it wasn't hard enough to say Kikowski, you know what I'm saying? Now I got Schlossnagle, but shout out Texas Athletics, man. so, yeah. So I'm looking at this Texas football team. A lot of change. We talked about last week how 14 players are invited to the NFL Combine. You're losing over 20 players that are draft eligible. And so, it's going to be a lot of turnover, right? But still a lot of talent on this team, still expected to be one of the best rosters in college football. But when you're losing 20 plus players, you're losing somebody from almost every position, right? Every position group is going to look different. And so the question is, going into the season, what position group are you the most confident in? I'm trying to think back of like coming into this last season, what position group would you have been most confident in, right? I would say quarterback because you had a starter going into his third year, but it was also Quinn Ewers. So I don't know how people felt. Like wide receiver, you would have looked at it and said, you got Ryan Wingo, Jonte Cook, DeAndre Moore, Isaiah Bond, and Matthew Golden, Silas Bolden. So maybe people would have said wide receiver. Offensive line probably would have been the answer. When you were returning 4 or 5 starters, and the starter you were replacing, you put in Cam Williams, who was big as hell. So offensive line probably would have been the consensus answer. Running back before the injuries, maybe. There was a lot of position groups that you were really confident in, I guess. And then we haven't even started talking about the defense, right? With Malik Muhammad, Jalen Gilbo, Jade Barron, Andrew Makuba, Michael Taft. Yeah, so there's probably a lot of position groups to really be confident in the offseason coming into last year. But I would probably say the offensive line would be the answer you would get the most. This year, I'm looking at the position groups, and like I said, there's a lot of talent, but I'm not sure it's as definitive going into this season, or I'm not sure it's like as, oh yeah, I'm confident in this one, confident in this one, confident in this one. And if you are confident, what's the level of confidence, right? So when I'm trying to decide what position group I'm the most confident in for 2025, let's just kind of go by the groups. You can start with quarterback. I have the utmost confidence in Arch Manning, right? And so I'm really confident in the quarterback position. But we've still seen a limited sample size of Arch Manning. It's enough to give me confidence and feel like he's a damn good player, but it's still a limited sample size at the end of the day. Limited experience. So you can be confident, but I think there has to be a little bit of temperament to that confidence because we haven't seen a ton of Arch Manning, right? And he only has, 2 collegiate starts under his belt. Then you look at running back, and I'm confident in the talent in the room. But when you have 2 running backs coming off a major injury, you got Jared Gibson, who's not the most explosive player in the world. It's like confident in the talent, but I have to question what the production is going to look like, especially early on, right? Wide receiver, I'm confident in, but, that relies you to be confident in some guys you haven't seen yet. Ryan Wingo, you need him to take a step. DeAndre Moore was solid. But you'd have to expect that if this is going to be a really good wide receiver core, then one of those 3 5 stars is going to have to step up and be really good for this Texas football team. So confident in the talent, once again, not necessarily sure about the production. Tight end position, you're bringing in somebody new. I really like Jordan Washington if he's going to be your starter. I think Amari Niblack, is somebody that, has a lot of really good traits as well. But, once again, you're bringing in somebody new to that position. Offensive line, love the talent. I love what we've seen from Trevor Gooseby, but limited sample size, right? I think Cole Hudson has been really solid for us. I'm confident in him. DJ Campbell returning, obviously confident in him. Brandon Baker, confident in, Mater Day and the products they put out, a 5-star right tackle or, just right under a 5-star. I think the offensive line will be solid. I'm confident in Kyle Flood, but I can't say there's a position group on this offense that I'm just super confident in. Probably Arch Manning, but like I said, I'm just being realistic with the limited sample size we've seen thus far. But outside of that, yeah, I can't say there's a position group on the offense that I'm just super confident in. Do I have the utmost faith, though? That's what it kind of really doesn't make sense, because I still have the utmost faith that Texas will be good and have a really good offense. But I guess there just isn't one position group I can pinpoint right now on the offense and say, yeah, they're going to ball out next year, besides Arch Manning. And then, like I said, 2 collegiate starts. The defense is where I start to have a little bit more confidence, right? I think Pete Kwiatkowski has shown, over the last 3 seasons that when he has the talent in place, when he has his guys, he can put together a hell of a unit. And I'm expecting the same output this season. We start with the edge positions. I think the edge positions is probably where I would go most confident. Yeah, I would probably go edge position is where I'm the most confident on this football team going into the season. There's one other position group that I may put up there with edge, but I think ultimately edge would take the cake, because edge would take the edge, right? Because when you look at it, we've talked about it, how Colin Simmons, just a young phenom, young sophomore, he may be the best edge rusher in the country. So if you have arguably the best edge rusher in the country on your team, that is a very strong position group. Then outside of that, you have Trey Moore, who had a hell of a back end to the season, ended up with 8 sacks, a couple forced fumbles. We know what he was able to do at UTSA. I think he's going to be even better this season, and he's going to have Colin Simmons on the other side of him full time. So, it's kind of like a pick your poison situation. Then you still got guys like Ethan Burke, Colton Vasek. You got a lot of depth in that edge room, but just the headliners of Colin Simmons and Trey Moore is enough to, keep any, opposing quarterback, offensive line, and offensive coordinator up at night. So the edge position is, I think, the position group we can hang our hat on going into the season, right? Linebacker, I love Anthony Hill and Leonga Lafau. You did lose Mo Blackwell and David Bender. You got the linebacker from Arkansas in the portal, though. Ty Anthony Smith was also really good for you in spurts last year. So I am really confident in the linebacker group. Defensive tackle is probably where there's going to be some question marks. I do like the 3 guys that they brought in out of the portal. Hero Canoe, Cole Brevard, I think Travis Shaw, maybe. I can't remember the other name. But I do like those 3 guys. I'm not sure if they're the level of defensive tackle we've had at the 40 acres the last 3 years, but I do like those guys, and I think they can bring something to the defense. So I would say defensive tackle, moderately confident in. Edge and linebacker, very confident. Corner, Malik Muhammad, I think he can have a better year, and Jalen Gilbo. Neither one of them had an interception last year, though, so we're going to need them to, get their hands on the football and force turnovers. But, I can expect them to take a step this next season. Replacing Jahdae Barron is going to be hard. I don't care how many stars you had in high school. You expect Kobe Black to step into that role. But I would expect losing a player like Jahdae Barron, that corner, you would be less confident in going into the season. Safety, you did lose Andrew Makuba, but you still have Michael Taft. You still have Derek Williams, right? You still have Jelani McDonald. You got one of the highest graded recruits to ever come to Texas and Jonah Williams coming in, plus Jordan Johnson-Rubel and Xavier Filsaime. So if there was any position that I think I could say I'm super confident in along with the edge rushers, it's safety. But, once again, like I said, Colin Simmons might be the best edge rusher in the country, and he might be a top 5 to 10 college football player, period, this season and next year. Then with Trey Moore on the other side, then with Ethan Burke, Colton Vasek, et cetera, as depth. I think the position group I can hang my hat on the most going into next season are the edge rushers. A quick word from our sponsors. And we talk about this women's basketball team. Man, are they doing the damn thing. You beat South Carolina on Sunday. You beat Kentucky during the week. And then you come back and beat LSU on Sunday. Vic Schaefer has got this team absolutely rolling. And we discussed that after the break. All right, today's episode of Locked On Longhorns brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. And there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you missed the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So, first off, I want to give a shout out to the basketball team, and Rodney Terry and them, the men, for beating number 15 Kentucky. That is a big win, especially the way things have been looking. So shout out to them for getting a big win. Hopefully it's a big momentum boost moving forward. I was hoping that this team wouldn't have to make such a big deal about beating the number 15 team in the country. Hell, I was hoping they'd be the number 15 team in the country or better, but hey, man, you know what I'm saying? Hey, man, I want to give them boys a shout out. I ain't gonna give them a segment, you know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna give them a shout out. So shout out to Texas for taking care of business on Saturday against Kentucky, the men. You know what I'm saying? They really needed that win, and like I said, hopefully it'll propel them moving forward. But we're here to talk about the women, man. What a hell of a lineup. Yesterday on Sunday. You know what I'm saying? Like, you look at, okay, like what's on, it's All-Star weekend, but I mean, that All-Star game was ass. You know what I'm saying? Like, NBA All-Star game, the little go to 40 format, the tournament. I mean, yeah, get that out of there. I'd rather see them throw alley-oops all game and shoot threes from half court. You know what I'm saying? Like, and drop 40 than what they was doing. That was crazy. And they still wasn't playing no defense. Then they was doing commercials and little comedy skits in the middle of the games. Like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, not commercials, but like concerts. And yeah, that wasn't cool at all. But you looked at the slate and you was like, damn, we get South Carolina, UConn. You know what I'm saying? Then we get Texas, LSU, and then it was like North Carolina State in between. You know what I mean? But still, like, we get South Carolina, UConn, and then Texas, LSU. Like, I was locked in. You know what I'm saying? And I love women's basketball. It didn't, it wasn't just abnormal for me to be locked in. But damn, that was a hell of a slate. And so UConn come out and just wax, South Carolina by 20 plus points. And I'm like, damn, Dawn Staley didn't had back-to-back bad Sundays. And I know she's a woman of faith, so praying for her, you know what I'm saying? Because I mean, she is an Eagles fan, so they did win the Super Bowl last Sunday. But like, I'm thinking, like, damn, like, she had the Eagles hoodie on. Texas beat them. She come back with the Eagles jacket. They get whooped by UConn. So then it's Texas LSU, and it comes out and it looks like it's a defensive battle. It's really tough for both teams to score, and you would expect that for any team that plays Texas, because that Vic Schaefer is going to have that pressure defense. And I thought that, at first they did a really good job of limiting LSU. But eventually, when you got, probably 3 of the 10 best players in college basketball, they're going to find ways to make plays. And that's what they did, right? You started to see Flage, get some buckets, right? And then, Michaela Williams, she started to get some buckets. And then Anissa Morrow, just an absolute monster. I mean, like Angel Reese, you know what I'm saying? Reincarnated. Jeez. And they were on the same team at one point. But she had, 15 points, 20 rebounds, you know what I mean? Like, and so they were making plays. And it felt like at the beginning of the game, I'm not sure what happened. Maybe they were just off because it didn't, but Texas just couldn't hit a shot. They just couldn't hit a shot. They were thankfully able to stay afloat and get some early offense. Passing the ball down into the post to Taylor Jones. So she did a really good job of, keeping Texas afloat. And they were never really out of it because they were playing such good defense. Like, yeah, it was a play here from Flage. It was a play here from Michaela Williams. It was a play here from Anissa Morrow. But it was always still like within single digits. I think LSU might have went up by like 12 at one point, which was the most. But then, Texas kind of immediately cut back into it. But yeah, I mean, like Rory Harmon couldn't hit a shot. I think Madison Booker started off 0 for 11, and they were getting to their spots. Maddie was getting to the mid range. We did have some turnovers, but Maddie was getting to the mid range. Rory Harmon was getting to the mid range. They were leaving her wide open at the three. We had some shot opportunities, and then we were getting the ball into the post, right, with Taylor Jones and Odeker off the bench, and even Justice Carlton might get into the post a little bit. And they were playing really good defense in the post, right? Blocking shots, really making those opportunities tough. At one point, Texas was shooting 14% from the floor. You know what I'm saying? I think we went like 6-7 minutes without scoring a field goal in the second quarter. So it felt like Texas was shooting themselves in the foot, right? It felt like Texas was losing because they couldn't hit a shot. And then you got some juice, right? I think it was Brianna Preston, I believe. Yeah, Brianna Preston at that backup point guard spot really came in and gave Texas some juice. And they started to make some plays at the end, of the second quarter. And I think they ended up down 9 at halftime. Let me look. It ended up down 9 at halftime. Yeah, it was 28-19. But like I said, they were just shooting so atrocious, in the first half. You kind of still felt decent about it because it's only a 9-point game, right? And then in the second half, they were able to outscore, LSU by 16 points and, ultimately beat them by 7. And you started to see all of those shots that they were getting in the first half. They started to make good on those opportunities, right? Rory Harmon, I believe she only made 4 field goals, but all 4 of them felt clutch. They felt like big shots in the moment, especially I think she had 2 in the fourth quarter where she got to her mid-range and then made a shot, right? Madison Booker started off 0 for 11, but I think after that, she went like 3 for 6, shot 50% from the floor, was still getting to her mid-range, didn't lose her confidence, and was able to knock down some big shots. Getting to the free throw line as well, didn't miss a free throw. That was a really good thing for Texas. And then had 10 rebounds, right? So finding other ways to impact the game and then playing really good defense. Jordan Lee, hit some really big shots. She had a really big 3. Like I said, Brianna Preston was huge. Taylor Jones ended up with 12 points. Brianna Preston had 7 points. She had a really big 3 where they dared her to take it, and she did. So, and then they were just able to play really good defense. And, finally, because they forced some turnovers in the first half, but finally in the second half, they were able to turn those turnovers into opportunities. And then it just came down at the end of the game to executing, making free throws and, kind of, keeping LSU from making a big basket that would have turned the game around. So, huge shout out to Vic Schaefer and this Texas basketball team. Like I said, at first it didn't look like they could throw a ball in the ocean. Seriously, it didn't look like they could throw a ball in the ocean. And then they really just started to make plays, down the stretch, crucial third quarter, fourth quarter, really good defense, really good offensive execution. Rory Harmon, Madison Booker getting to their spots, role players, putting in huge contributions, getting those rebounds, getting to the foul line and just converting on opportunities, right? And while the LSU team was kind of falling apart, going from, because that's a 16-point swing, right? Like being up by 9 to losing by 7. So, while the, LSU team was falling apart, Texas started to play their best basketball, So huge shout out, like I said, to, Vic Schaefer, the staff and just all of these women that are 3 top 10 wins in 1 week, 2 top 5 wins in 7 days. Vic Schaefer's a man of faith too. He's he having some great Sundays, right? So, just huge shout out to this whole program right now. Next game is against Georgia. They should be able to take care of business. And, this team is a legitimate national championship contender. I think whether they get Aaliyah Moore back or not, obviously she would help a lot, but this team is a legitimate national championship contender. And, they got to be playing with, the utmost confidence right now after what they've been able to accomplish over the last week. So huge shout out to the women's basketball program, and then minor shout out to the men's basketball team for beating Kentucky on Saturday. All right, quick word from our sponsors. And then I want to talk about the baseball team. They started their season. So how did the Jim Schlossnagle era start at the University of Texas. We discuss after the break. So I saw something on the Twitter machine where I think like the last 3 or 4 coaches at the University of Texas have lost their first game. That's not like football where you only play of them, like 12 of them of a season, or basketball where that really wouldn't matter either, but or no, I guess it's not like football where you only play like 12 of them a season. So like losing your first game would be really bad. It's baseball, or just like basketball. If you lost your first game, it's not like an omen of what type of coach you're going to be. Um, but yeah, that's crazy that like the last 4 coaches like have not won their first game at the University of Texas in terms of baseball. And then they had to start their season on Valentine's Day. Like, what, you know what I mean? What if them boys had plans that night? I guess they did have plans, right, to play baseball. But anyway, so you look at it, the Jim Schlossnagle era started off 2-1. Obviously, not the start you wanted on Friday night against Louisville. They lost 3-4 in 10 innings, but a nice bounce back, right? That's what you always want to see after a loss. Resilience. You come back against Ole Miss on Saturday while the Texas men's basketball team was taking care of Kentucky. Earlier in the day, they came back that night and won 10-0. Right? Run ruled Ole Miss 10-0 in 7 innings, right? This is a program that won a national championship a couple years ago. Then you come back yesterday on February 16th on the Sunday and you win 14-8 in Globe Life Field. All 3 games were in Globe Life, but you win 14-8 against Oklahoma State. And we know this Texas baseball team in recent memory has had some struggles in Globe Life. I'm not sure what it is, right? Because the Rangers won a championship. Actually, we won a championship in Arizona, so we didn't necessarily win a championship there, but the Rangers won a championship. So I'm not sure what it is about, Texas and Globe Life Field, but maybe in the Jim Schlossnagle era, things will be different. So shout out to the baseball team starting off 2-1 to start the season. I know the Horn fans love their baseball, and it's here now, and so 2-1 start to the season. They played this week, tomorrow, Tuesday night, against Houston. That'll be their first game of the season in the dish. And then a weekend series, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday against Dartmouth, right? So their athletes may be smarter, but our athletes work harder. We're going to whoop Dartmouth's ass in Austin this weekend. All right. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Locked On Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hook 'em. Peace.